What's up, everybody? Justin here. We are back. More CD collection. We're going to jump right in. First, we are listening to Infernum with Tar Na Fuan. This is the original Infernum. So back in the day, some members of Graveland went different ways and started two different bands called Infernum. So they're both based in Poland. They both have ex-members of Graveland. And this one is more considered the original Infernum. And this was their first full length. It's about 40 minutes long. And it's just cold, grim Polish black metal, which I feel is some of the best ever created. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Hands down, if someone's like, what's your favorite Polish, or what's your favorite black metal scene? Poland. I love Polish black metal. And this particular Infernum is Rob Darkin on keyboards and Capricornus from Capricornus playing everything else. And they did this full length. They did another full length called Farewell that I'm not as familiar with. And this tape version came out on Nightbirds Records, and it's not listed on Metal Archive, so I don't know if it's legit. I think Nightbirds is a legit label. I'm not sure. Anyway, I really like this particular Infernum. So, into the CDs. First up, one of my favorite bands, God Dethroned. I have 4 God Dethroned albums. So the first time, a bunch of videos ago, I talked about a compilation called the Deathmeister Comp that Metal Blade and Death Records put out in the late 90s. And that's the first place I heard God Dethroned, with the song the Grand Grimoire off of the Grand Grimoire, which is their second CD. And I love that song, but I never came across the CD in person. And back then, I mean, the late 90s, 98, 99, 2000, you didn't just walk into the CD store and buy any death or black metal CD you wanted. It just didn't happen. And I didn't live in an area that had like a local, like a independent retailer. I just had mall record stores. And we had a little used CD shop that it would have Cannibal Corpse CDs and Deicide CDs and more mainstream metal stuff. But anyway, I never came across this CD just in person to buy. But a few years later, when Ravenous came out in 2001, I picked it up in Tower or Camelot or somewhere. And Ravenous was the last great God Dethroned album before I feel like they tapered off. And it's just, man, it's sick. God Dethroned play really venomous, scathing black death metal, and it's just like a stab in the fucking neck as soon as they start. But they're super melodic, and they have extremely catchy songs with lots of hooks and lots of killer melodic guitar playing and a really memorable sound. They also, no one else sounds like God Dethroned. You can't pigeonhole them. They're not a generic death metal band by any means. They always sound like God Dethroned, and I think that Henry Sattler is one of the best frontmen in death metal. Now, the lyrics to God Dethroned are a little silly, and they always have been. But all of his lyrics kind of tell a story. It's, you know, it's poetry that he's twisted and turned, or it's biblical stories that he's twisted and turned. I love this fucking band. And so I bought Ravenous. I went back and I was able to snag these two, the Grand Grimoire and Bloody Blasphemy. And let me see. Yeah, Grand Grimoire was their second album, and Bloody Blasphemy was their third album. I don't have a copy of the Christ Hunt, which is their first one. And their first record, Christ Hunt, is way more of just a standard kind of death metal record. And it's one of those I've never had a copy in front of me just to buy, and I've never thought, you know, oh, hey, let me go check Discogs and buy Christ on it. I need to do that. I need to get it. But these two, these are the albums. These two right here are just two of the most scathing, just venomous, vile, ripping, just fucking ripping black death metal records ever fucking released. And God Dethroned, man, they're so underrated and nobody ever talks about them. But I love them so much. And so much talent in these records. So then in 2003, Into the Lungs of Hell came out. And Into the Lungs of Hell is markedly, like, pulled back. It's a little slower. It's a little groovier. My copy is a double disc that has some live stuff on it, and they did a US tour that I would have loved to have seen. To this day, I've never seen God Dethroned. They ended up breaking up, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and got back together a couple of years ago, and they played MDF this year. And I've heard from lots of people that they were one of the best sets. Hopefully they will tour the States again, or I'll be able to catch them in Europe one day. I absolutely love God Dethroned. But this record, it didn't click with me the way that their early stuff did. And I listened to it a bunch and kind of put it on the shelf, and I haven't ever gone back to it. I listened to this one a few months ago. I said, hey, let me pull that out. So after Into the Lungs of Hell came out, my interest in newer God Dethroned tapered off. And then they put out In the Lair of the White Worm. They put out Toxic Touch, which is a dumb album title. They put out a few records. And they put out Passchendaele. And that's when they started with kind of the war theme. And if you're a God Dethroned fan, you know, or if you've kind of seen them and followed them, their last 3 records have all had a war theme. And somewhere along the way, I decided to check out what at the time was the new God Dethroned record, In the Sign of the Iron Cross. And that record fucking rules, man. Into the Storm of Steel just fucking grabs you by the throat as soon as it starts. And then last year, they put out a brand new record, and the name is escaping me, but it fucking rules. And it's that classic God Dethroned sound, but they've moved away from the poetry and the religious themes to much more of like a war theme. And what Henry does is he tells stories, like perspectives of certain wars and battles in music. And they're really good. I don't have a copy of the newest one, but if I see it in front of me, I'm going to snag it. So I love God Dethroned, and if you do, let's talk about them. But man, they're so underrated. Nobody ever talks about God Dethroned. I think they're fucking sick. So when I bought Ravenous almost 20 years ago, there's this cover, number 4, Consumed by Darkness. So that's a God McCobb cover, and I love it. Well, then one day I came across God McCobb, The Winter Long, and I said, ooh, that's the band that God Dethroned covered. So I snagged this, and originally they were called McCobb End. So that song, Consumed by Darkness, was a McCobb End song. Then they changed their name to God McCobb. And I think that this was the only album they ever did. I don't remember. I have this on vinyl too. It got re-released by Blood Harvest several years ago, 10 years ago. But this is just a good, like, Swedish death metal record. It's a little doomy. It's a little forlorn sounding, a little somber sounding. But God McCobb absolutely fucking crushes. Love this CD, man. It's a classic in my collection. Then we have Godless with Irreligious Naming Discrepante. Godless is from Chile, and they're a super sick death metal band. They kind of have an immolation thing going, and this record in particular is rad. It came out on CD, it came out on cassette tape, and it came out on, I want to say, like a 7-inch set. I've got them all because the bass player, Josser Nasser, a buddy of mine, shout out to him, he has been a huge supporter of my band, Father Befouled, since we started. He came across us way back in the beginning, in the demo days, and he's always supported us and always been one of those guys who's been in my corner. And he would send me his stuff, and I fucking love Godless. They have a newer record than this, and I can't remember the name of it, and I have a copy of it, but I've never put it in a jewel case, so it's just like stuck in a CD sleeve in a stack of promo CDs somewhere, but I've got it. And I think they have a brand new record out or coming out. But Godless is really sick, like dissonant, techie, old school death metal. Anti-Christian, anti-religious death metal. And they're great. Next we have Godless Rising with Rising Hatred. This is still sealed. It is on our favorite label, Pathos Productions. And it's Black Death Metal record. That's all I can tell you. I don't know. Don't know much about him. Then we have another sealed CD, and this is God's Temple of Family Deliverance. Got this in that same giant trade that I talk about in a bunch of videos. 4 songs on this. I don't know what it is. I have to look it up. Maybe it's cool. So, next we have another, like, personal favorite. Godspeed You Black Emperor. Godspeed is a music collective, or a band. They're a band from Canada. They've been around since the mid-90s. With at any given time, there's like 9 or 12 people in the band or something, and they play kind of instrumental, ambient rock music. So guitars, some percussion, violins, bass. Really, really like somber and sad, kind of morose, melancholy music. Now, most famously, they had a song in the movie 28 Days Later, that zombie movie from 15 years ago. And a lot of people started to know who they were because of that. But I got into them a couple years before that came out. This record, F sharp, A sharp, Infinity. And there's the, if you look at the CD there, that's F sharp, A sharp with the infinity symbol. That's the name of the album. This record is 4 super, super long songs. Always love this booklet and layout. They're kind of a political band. Kind of, anarchist, punk, hippie band. But even though they're an instrumental band, that they have a message. And the first song on this album is called Dead Flag Blues. And it's this long, bleak song that has a spoken word intro in it that is just fucking unreal, man. It sets the tone so well. This is mood music. This is, turn all the lights off and kind of sink into like a dead Sunday afternoon type music. Yankee UXO is another album that I believe came before F sharp, A sharp. F sharp, A sharp came out in '98. And this may have been after that. I don't remember. And they've got a couple of other older records. I have all of their albums on vinyl because they're definitely more of a vinyl band. But they're just, if you've ever listened to a band like Explosions in the Sky or Mono or, Godspeed trumps all of that stuff. And it's just very, some of their songs top like 45 minutes. And just these long, long movements of music, and they intersperse them with samples, and it's just, man, I love this band, and I love this album so much. They broke up about 10 years ago and then reformed a few years ago, and they put out 3 full-length records, like one after the other, and they're all fucking great. I've got them all on vinyl. But I really, really, I'm going to drop a link to F sharp, A sharp, because it's kind of their Rain and Blood. But they are fucking killer. So then we have Boar Philia with Ascend to Chaos. This is an EP that came out on Dark Descent a long time ago. And just, groovy, just killer, solid modern age death metal. That, you know, their Finnish, they sound like Finnish death metal. I have not kept up with Boar Philia. I remember liking this a lot, but I haven't listened to it much. And they've got 2 full lengths since this, including a brand new one that I need to get reacquainted with. But Boar Philia, good stuff. Then we have Goretrade. So Goretrade is a band. They are a British-English death metal band. Kind of like a gore thing, like Carcass is a huge influence on them. And this is their first one, Mutilated in Minutes. This is the Relapse Records version. And there's an earlier version that has a bunch of samples on it. But Relapse either couldn't or wouldn't pay to have the samples licensed on the re-release, so they're not on this. But this is just good, solid, like, juvenile, like, impetigo carcass worship. You know, dudes cover themselves in blood and play death metal. But I always really liked them. And then they put out this, and I don't know why I only have the CD and the booklet. I have no idea. Maybe this was a promo. This came out in 2004 on Metal Blade, and it's called Only Tools and Corpses. And that is a reference to there's some old, like, Monty Python sketch or some English comedy sketch or show called Only Fools and Horses. So it's Only Tools and Corpses. And this was more just killer, like, old school Carcass style death metal. And it's really good. Well, then they put out a new Dawn for the Dead, and you can already tell from the artwork that it is different. And when this came out, I listened to it like once and fucking hated it because it is so different. It's not like the juvenile, gory, tongue-in-cheek style death metal. They tried to mature, and it's almost like more of a ethereal sounding, kind of like a Cephalic Carnage type record, and I did not like it at all. I'll have to give it another shot, but those early Goretrade records I always loved. They broke up after that one, I think. But like every other band, they may be back together these days. I don't know. So then we have Goretrade. I have 2 Goretrade CDs, Ritual of Flesh and Perception of Hate. And I bought this one at Vinyl Fever in Tallahassee, Florida, who I mention a lot, which is a great music store. It's no longer there. And this is just solid Colombian death metal. Crushing Colombian brutality. And that's what it is, man. It's just like great, just nasty, like razor sharp. It's kind of brutal. It's kind of gory. It's kind of, you know, old school death metal sounding, but I always really liked it. And then I came across this one, Perception of Hate, somewhere, but it doesn't have a tray card. It may have been a promo. I don't know. But to the best of my knowledge, this was just more of the same. You know, just solid death metal, like nasty death metal. I think this might have more of like a war vibe to it. And then I lost track of them. I have no idea what they've done since then. I'll have to look them up. And then last for this round, I think this is going to be a short video, I guess. You never know how quickly you're going to get through a stack of 10 or 12, 15 CDs. Goregasm with Stab Wound Intercourse. Goregasm is one of those like upper echelon kind of cornerstone brutal death metal bands that a lot of people, a lot of my peers, a lot of friends that listen to brutal death metal, they consider Goregasm up there with like Devourment and Guttural Secrete and Malignancy and those like cornerstone forefather bands. And this record in particular, Stab Wound Orgasm, is their, you know, it's their Rain and Blood. It's their main fucking album. And they've got several. I have another one of their albums on vinyl. And brutal death metal and vinyl doesn't really make sense. It's not a style of music that lends itself to the warmth of vinyl to me. And I didn't buy it. I got it in a trade or someone just gave it to me. I don't remember. But I like Goregasm. They're just solid, just fucking brutal, technical death metal. But it's worth your time if you like that kind of stuff. So, that's it. My tape's over. Let's talk about these. And I got some more stuff coming. I hope you guys are still enjoying the videos. There seems to be lots of conversation on every one of them. I love talking and interacting with everybody. And I love the kind of catharsis I get from talking about all these albums that I've had for so long. You know, my wife used to pick on me. She's like, what are you going to do with all these? Why do you have all these records? Why do you have 2 copies of this? Or why do you have that? Or what's so special about this one? And I always say, you know, sometime, one day, someone's going to ask me, do you have this? And I'll be like, yes, here it is right here. And I can tell them about it. And I think that's the cool thing about collecting music and collecting, you know, different things. And I'm not crazy about it. I'm not one of those guys that has to have every single version of every single release. Like I know people who have like, there's a particular Integrity 7-inch that there's probably 50 pressings of. So there's, you know, 50 color variants of this one particular kind of just all right Integrity 7-inch. And myself, I've probably got 5 of them that I've just, every time I've come across it, I'll snag it in a record store or something, but I don't need that many of them. But some people fucking go crazy overboard. But anyway, I'm rambling because this video is short. Let's talk about these. Let's talk about death metal, talk about black metal. And I got some more stuff coming for you guys. I'll talk to you later.